Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Kev's Workshop. What we're looking at out here is where my 7¼ inch track sits, and quietly in the background, without putting it on my website, I've been building this ramp. This ramp measures 2 metres in length, and as you see my main track is set up with multi-gauge. Outer 2 rails being 7¼ the inner 2 being the 3.5 inch and 5 inch gauge track, which basically goes to the end of my straights. Now off here to the right I've got more lengths of steel, which will then continue these 2 gauges through my tunnel and to my train station out the back. And what we're looking at here is my original work stand from many years ago, from my first project, which I called Bumblebee. I've now just finished modifying it, and the winch I did originally have placed here, but now I've extended out, put the winch up here. As you see, 7¼ inch only through the tunnel. So yeah, basically I will be continuing the 3.5 inch and 5 inch gauge as time progresses, and with the winch and the original work stand and the original ramp which I'd built, which is this section here. Now that is another 2 metres worth of ramp. So all up from that ramp through to here, you're looking at 3.8 metres I think it is for memory, and then I've also got this extension now welded on. It's another 220mm longer. That's to the front edge. If you include the fact it's 50mm by 25mm tubing, I've actually extended that 220mm by 50mm, so it's 270mm from outside edge to outside edge, because I needed the winch to sit further out from where the wheel stops are going to be. And this wheel stop can be relocated, and that's the other wheel stop sitting there ready for when I need it. And as you can see, I've got a short and long set of legs. The short legs I've actually welded on some 1 inch tubing, which is down here, 270mm in length, allowing the overhang so I can weld, and the other longer legs up here to support the ramp itself. Now as you notice, there's a big gap here. If I come in down close, you see I've got 2 bits of 1 inch angle steel, 25 by 25mm by 5mm. They're the cradle handles, you might call it, that this section of track can drop into. And I've had to modify my original ramp to adjust to sit onto this, and that's the new ramp I've been building since the beginning of January 2026. And if we come down low enough, you can see where my ramp starts, where the main line continues underneath it, and the angled steel that I'm using as the support legs. I have already given this one test run up the ramp, and it's come up quite well. There's a minor modification I need to still make, but my rail car, which is 3 metres or just over 3 metres in length, will now, and also at 300 kilograms, will now actually traverse up this ramp. Not necessarily as easily as I'd like it to, but it will do it. Up behind my first rail car, you got to remember folks, I'm dealing with 7¼ inch miniature railway. There's the second rail car, the tail end, and yeah, it's still a long way off being complete. And as you can see from here, I've still got to cut the driver's window out so the headlights set, and despite the levels of light getting low, I do have the driver's dashboard in place, and there is a driver's seat which can't be easily seen in this light, but it is there, trust me. So yeah, once you look at both these rail cars together, from this end to that end, you're looking at about 6.5, almost 7 metres worth of train, just in 2 rail cars. So as we continue back along towards my tunnel area, the idea is when we get down to this area here, the train, or any train that I put up onto the ramp, will go up this section, and you'll notice in amongst here I actually have bits of steel tubing. Now if I come down to here where you can see it, that's 165mm, reading it upside down of course, but for the 3.5 inch, which is this rail, and the 5 inch being that rail, they will be welded onto these sliding bits of tube. And if I spin you around to this side, it'd be easier to spot how the rails are offset. So if we come to here, it's 5 inch gauge from that rail, that's 3.5 inch from there to there. So if this ramp had rails sitting on here, and I put the ramp the opposite way around, slide it across, and that should realign if the ramp is facing the other direction. If it's facing this direction, slide it across, and your rails should be back in line with these rails. Now this is a forethought because later on it will have the 3.5 inch and the 5 inch gauge up this ramp, and there's still more work to be done on this. I made the yellow stand up myself using some old tubing, and on the end here to hook into my rail car I've got the standard grab hook, or whatever you want to call that, and I've put a bit of 20mm tubing over the end of it. That'll hook into the coupling, which I'll show you over here. It drops in nicely to the back of that. Now in West Australia we use chopper couplings, and on the other piece there will be a bolt here that this is hooking onto. The chopper sits back normally. When you couple up, throw it forwards, and then the safety chain's in underneath here as well, which you can see just in here. So with the access hatch open, I shall put the hook into place, and we can winch 300 kilograms worth of rail car up in the air onto this stand. This stand, you could say, is about knee high. You could even guess it around 600 odd mil, or around about 2 foot up to the working height. Now at this point here, what I've done with the join, in amongst all here, as rusty as this looks now, there's some rod inside. It's running the full length from here all the way back. I can feel it right in here. That bit of steel rod acts like a line-up piece, and with this guide on it, there's a guide the other side as well, and all this just slots in place. So you can see, if we get over here to the other side, it's exactly the same setup. So, a bit like model train track, you can separate it when you need to and lock it together when you need to. To give you some idea, if we were to come back up to this leading end, we can sight this up, get an idea of what it's like. Now, steel isn't necessarily always straight. Depends on how it's been stored or transported and what you do with it when you're at home or in your workshop. So we come up to where the short legs are, and that will actually rest on those rails. I'll be taking this big set of legs out the way at the moment, and then once I've done that, they'll sit right down into here. So bear with me while I change camera positions. Okay. Now I'm starting to lose a bit of light. Get some idea. If I just set this up roughly, it's got to be done properly yet. Yes, that's sitting awkward because of the way I set the stand up. I'm only lifting one corner, I should be lifting the middle. But don't worry, this is just an example for now. By the time that comes on up, you've got the whole end being lifted. Yes, it's not being done properly at the moment. Understand that. As I say, this is a setup for example. But the whole idea is there's now one continuous ramp. So I'm just going to change camera position and reset this, hopefully to set a little bit better. Okay, this fading light, it'll be not easy to see, but if I can get enough cable winch out of this. Right, let's see, only just this low light, the bit of tubing sitting in. Let's just slot it in behind here, and pretty soon we'll start winching it up. Okay, with some light, now you can sort of see now, tubing is just pushed in the back, and the towing hook is linked into the tubing, and that has already done one test run up the ramp, so this will be another one for you. Okay, so the handle here, bit of a slow action, but it's getting there. You always make sure you've got the catch on. And also a good thing, be prepared in case this cable decides to let go. If you get caught in the firing line under high tension, it can be a real nasty effect. I'm just going to hold this here for a minute, show you where it's at. Okay, there's the beginning of the ramp. There's the second axle and first axle climbing the ramp. That's as far as I've gone at the moment. You can see it underneath a little easier. But if that was to let go, you don't want to be in the firing line of that. Really, you don't. I'll just stop the winding for a moment so you can get an idea where we are at. This is the rear bogie, axle 3 and 4 of course. Let's just start to get it onto the ramp. And as you can see, we're moving into the front end. And there's the front bogie. And we're right at the join between ramp sections. That's the new section of ramp I've built. This is the existing section. And for safety, I've got this bit of framework under here just to ensure that nothing goes wrong. And yep, still hanging on. Yeah, I'll change hands on the camera and all that. You can see now where this stand comes into effect, and it's actually on the rail, so it cannot sink down anywhere below it. But certainly the idea of this section, this is about midway up the old ramp section. And still be aware, as I said earlier, this isn't finished yet. So there's more work to be done. And there's that leg that was supporting the track earlier, and I got it laid down on purpose. So this will give you an idea how far up the ramp we actually are. Okay, you can now just see where I've come to a stop for the time being. That's the bottom of the ramp. And I've got the very last axle sitting on there. And basically I come to where the yellow stand is. Alright, there's the front bogie. So the importance of having that stand. That stand is also removable. So what I do need to do is put in some more supports. So there'll be a stabiliser off there to stop that from moving out of its position. To give you some idea, there's the join that we were looking at a little while ago. And there's the top end where the winch is, and there's the other wheel guard. So yes, progress is getting there. Okay, beginning of the ramp once more. So you can see how far the back end of the rail car is now. Yes, the low light is getting darker and darker. But yes, there's the set of legs. There is more support work to be put in. It's nearing completion. Again, the yellow stand we saw earlier. And as we progress forwards, there's that stand. And it's about middle of the rail car. Yes, there's the horn. There's the front bogie sitting right over the back end of the stand. So it is nearly at the top. And here we are, finally at the top end. I'm actually right near the top. I could put the rail car a little further forward, but it's still hanging on. The extension bar, you can now see why I've put the extension bar on. So at least this way the winches are well and truly out of the way. There's the front bogie, and that's roughly the middle of the stand. And that's the front end of the stand, middle end and back end. And behind it we've got the ramp into the darkness. And that's down here roughly where the join is. And there's the new section of ramp as we peer into the darkness. And that's where I come to the end of it. I did have intentions of getting some video before sunset, however different things happening and I've had to come back to it. So there you go folks, at the moment we will return to this in a while, but the rail car is up on the stand. Yep, and there's our driver inside. He used to be naked, so we called him Nicholas. Yeah, all the driving controls in there. It's easier to see in daylight, of course, but certainly for those who want to see, up underneath my rail car that I built. It's not easy to get this light into here. Safety chains hanging up. There's the front bogey's drive. Now we've just got to try to get this right. Oh, there we go. Trying to get myself in some weird positions here. There's the drive sprocket off the motor. And the associated wiring. Drive chain, which is looking a little slack at the moment. That's not a drama at the moment. But now if I wish to work underneath it, I can now work up underneath my rail car. So I think this stand, even though it's not complete just yet, by the time it is finished, I'll be able to get working underneath my rail car. I don't have the luxury of an elevated section of ground to have elevated track, nor do I have the space to put in a massive ramp and do what professional clubs do. So I just have to make do with what little space I've got and make do with what steel I've got, what scraps I can get a hold of, etc. Everything I'm doing is on a shoestring budget. I do not have heaps of money to spend. When you're unemployed, money is super tight, and yeah, your fortnightly government money does not go very far. So to build all this on a shoestring budget, that is what I'm trying to achieve. So for those who are trying to work out the 7 1/4 inch gauge track, hang on, come back over here, sorry. These sleepers, centre to centre, there's centre line of each rail tie, which is the steel bar on top of the plastic wood sleepers. They are 200mm apart. And if you go this way with it, 2 outer rails, 7 1/4. The inner 2 5-inch gauge and 3.5-inch gauge, make it multi-gauge. And yes, on these 2 rails I can run G-scale, 45mm. Mind you, this gauge here is about 48mm, but yeah, that's not going to be able to fit HO scale, a bit too broad for that. So yeah, basically 3.5-inch gauge is the inner right rail, inner left rail is 5-inch gauge, but we'll delve into that in another video. Seeing as how we're losing light, I'm going to pack it in and hopefully get back to this in some daylight. So I shall be back as soon as I possibly can. Well, here we are folks, we're back and in daylight. Another ridiculously hot day, about 34, 36 odd degrees Celsius. So a nice warm breeze that's sort of blowing every now and then. But what you just saw a moment ago, there's my two rail cars at the back end. Looking at the bottom ramp, to the top of the ramp. Yes, I was trying to get whatever recording I could get before I lost total light, but wasn't to be. You know, since the last shot, I've actually put the scissor jack in place. This is more what I've got in mind to support this end of the ramp, but at least this way I'll be able to get it lifting evenly, and then I can lower it down as I need to. The handle that I've got on this, I made that myself out of a bit of steel bar. Then I've more or less forced it into the bend and made the hook up accordingly and so on. So not too bad for a couple of bits of steel rod that I was given. However, the scissor jack, cancel cleanup, curbside shopping if you want to call it. So people pull all this junk at the front of their place. They just needed a damn good clean up, that one. I've got two of them, two different locations, not far from each other. It's almost exactly identical, the same sort of jack. So yeah, it's my mate Jack, one of them. However, as from the previous video, you can see all the way down here, that is the other support legs which I've got here, painted white. They are to support back here roughly where the yellow stand is. So when this goes and becomes levelled up, you've got something as a support. There will be another scissor jack down this end of town. Well, that's the intentions anyway. Then I can seesaw all this to a horizontal rather than at a ramped area. Down here, what I've just put out for this bit of video. Let's have a look here. 3.5 inch gauge steam loco driving wheels. They still need work. They're not machined properly yet. Given to me some years ago. The 3 axles, so I can make a giant 060 or maybe use a 462 or something. But yeah, I've got to remake the axles because they're a bit of a sloppy fit. And then I can hopefully machine the flanges properly and the wheel tread properly. But certainly you can see by this, even as I swing this around, 7.25 inches on the outer two rails, which are these two here. Oops, get them out there. So that's the 7.25 inch. That is your 5 inch gauge. That is your 3.5 inch. And in here is where the G scale runs. So even that's about 48, 49 mil, something like that. Near on 50 mil or 2 inches. So yeah, without measuring it again properly. I do have the tape. I should have decided to use that. So if I put my specky 4 eyes on, and while everyone else falls off the chair, yeah, you'll be able to see in there perhaps roughly where it sits. It's a little over 45 mil. So yeah, later on I'll be using the tape measure. I'll be setting in the inner rails. So then we'll have a rail sitting there, and then that'll also be able to go onto this, and it'll be just hard left, hard right, and the rail should hopefully line on up if I do it properly. So down here. There's my hook with my tubing, and take out the wheel chock. So if you want to stop your trains from rolling on a slight gradient, it's the easiest and simple way to do it. Just take the wheels out of the way and pull that out, and you can see it starts rolling. Now it's found its spot. Now I'm going to have to loosen off this winch because I don't have enough at the moment to hook that onto the towing coupling. Okay, again, what you didn't quite see last night's bit of video, that just drops straight in. What stops it from coming out? The fact it's trying to twist. As it's pulling on the shackle here, they can only pull this in such a way that it'll hold. All going well, we should be successful. Try to stand off here to one side. Anyway, just at the point here where it's starting to pull the rail car up onto the ramp. Got a little bit of resistance at the bottom because the length of the rail car. And once it gets past the tough spot, it'll start winding it up the ramp. And at the moment the front bogies, the front set of wheels, should be part way up the new section of ramp. Yeah, the old hand winch. This one's set for 500 kilos. I'm trying hard not to be in the firing line if it lets go. So far the front bogie is part way up. And the second bogie should be on the end of the ramp. I think we need to go check that, just to double check things. This is what we couldn't really see in the low light from previous. Yep, here we are, front axle, second axle, and the rear bogie is just on the end of the ramp. Cool. Just to prove a point, so that's now ready to leave the main line and go up the ramp. Cool. Again, another tail end view. There's my main line, there's the beginning of the ramp, and if we come down to this level, it's transitioned nicely, even though there's a slight misalignment here, but that's neither here nor there just yet. Something I will refine a bit later on. And as you see, there's one of the two guides to stop it from going sideways. Over here there's another one. That'll need a little more adjustment, but yeah, it gives you some idea. Pretty much on par if we came to the top of the ramp. Okay, we're just about at the top, so I thought I'd just hold the production for a bit. So there we are, we're actually getting quite high up. We are near the top of the ramp, and I've just put a G-clamp in place. As you might notice, the G-clamp is just to ensure my weld doesn't let go. So notice I haven't welded that properly yet. Oh great, we're going to have a howling dog very soon. There she goes. Okay. If we look at this from this point of view, I can keep winding this a little more. So, let's clamp in a moment. Okay. That's going to prevent me from going further, but it doesn't really matter. I'll redo that weld in a while when it's cooled down, and you'll be able to get it, well, I'll be able to get it to come up closer. But the idea is, where I've got the wheel stopper, which is right there, I'll have to get that right up to the front of the rail car. It's only about, oh I know, a couple of inches to the end. But the idea is, with this other wheel stopper that I've got here, once I loosen those nuts off, I'll be able to put it behind here and stop it from rolling down. So, for a bit of a wander, if I need to do any work underneath my rail car, this is what it looks like from up underneath. So there's the front coupling and buffer beam area. There's underneath the cab floor. And you can see here the motor mounting plate. These four little ones at the back are the motor adjustment, where the big ones at the front, they're the anchors for the bearings, which, if we can get up into here, a bit hard to see into this area, and feeding the camera up into the workings. And you may appreciate there's very little room. So this is the inner end. So this is what it looks like from underneath. So if I need to do any work, at least I can see what I'm working on. The brake caliper, standard bike brake. That's only a park brake, if you need to notice it. And look through underneath the front end, and we're looking through down to the back end. Zoom in down here, it'll save me walking a bit. So you can see I can now do what I need, if need to, from underneath. Now the horn is a Commodore VY Commodore horn. Sad enough, it still sounds like a car horn when you're out on the main line, but for the station it'll do. Later on I want to change that and put a proper air horn into it. And don't worry about this bit of steel bar, it's only there for the short term. There we go. And bring the camera on down. Again, if I need to work on it at this end, it's not very high up, but by the time I level the stand to a horizontal position, it should be enough for me to get into and do what I need to do. The rear motor mounting. And there you go, there's the motor, 12 volt, 450 watts worth of power. Sorry, not 12 volt, 24 volt, I stand corrected. So yeah, 450 watt motor, two of these doing the work. So yep, 900 watts worth of power under the floor. But this will give you some idea. It took me from 2017 to 2022 to build this rail car. These bogies were built around 2012-2014 area. So unfortunately it's taking a lot longer than I really want. When you spend a lot of time unemployed and trying to pay off bills and spend money on a project like this, it is not easy. So if we skin back, there is the second rail car. And we come down here to the back end of it. The safety chain sitting over the top at the moment. You can see the other chopper coupling and the Anderson plug. Now eventually this will be wired in and I'll be able to drive the rail car from both ends. Over here I've got the other carriage which I use at Christmas time. And as you see, these bogies are different. These are the Jeff Clifton style plate frame bogies. I took measurements many years ago from the old Kurner Park and I drew up drawings and then I made a copy of the Jeff Clifton bogies. It's the only way I was going to get plans. So these have been successful. I did these around 2000, 2002 area and I built both bogies. So as you can see there's one at each end of this carriage. So if we swing back up over here, all the up and down movement is taken up by those springs and the axle boxes. The bogie frame sits underneath the carriage as expected. And I've got a coupling sitting up here on the deck, just my adapter coupling, so I can haul it with my rail car or some other locomotive that uses these style couplings. But certainly to see my rail car up on the stand, even though it's tilted, I class this as a major success. So as I say, I still have extra supports to weld in and they will go across the rails underneath. So you can get yourself down into here. Between that leg and that leg will be a piece of angled steel, as will be across there, leg to leg, and also from that leg to this leg. So it'll actually sit on the railhead itself. So there you go folks, this is my new stand. So at this end, just bear with me, I'll get a tape measure and we'll measure it up. Okay, this is where the join is. So we'll take this height from the join, my trusty tape measure. It may or may not be easy for you to see. Right at the join, it's about 265mm or 10¼ inches up from the ground. So there we are at the base. That's the height at this end, not including the little joiner sections here. So 2 metres from one end to the other, that is 2 metres from that join all the way down to where it starts. So there you go. View from back here. That scissor jack is perfect for this because they sit in the rail car. Thinking I may have to get another pair if I can find some. Otherwise I'll go and buy a brand new set. There's a stand. There's part of the ramp. And down there's the rest of it. So from the bottom to where the ramp joins the stand, that's 4 metres. And then we've got this little bit here on the end, which is, I think, about another 1.8 metres or something like that. I hope I haven't been too boring for you, but because it's so difficult to see this in the low light, I thought I'd come back on out and show you how it looks from the daylight view, and at least this way you can see if it's holding 300 kilograms worth of weight, then it should handle what I'm doing with it. I do have other projects available to come onto this stand, and one of these projects I bought several years ago at $1,500 Australian, that is, was a 064 Egyptian Delta. I get this cover fully up, be able to hopefully appreciate and see what's under it. And the Egyptian Delta is very similar in appearance to a Queensland cane train. This nonsense here to drive it has got to come off. So that's the back end where the cab sits. There's your 6 driving wheels. Up here will be the cylinders. See the holes are already drilled. You'd have your steam input and your exhaust ports, plus all your mounting holes, plus whatever. But yeah, that is a future project I will eventually get onto, and all going well, that will eventually end up down here on the main line, or up on this ramp where I can work on it at perhaps knee level. Hope you've enjoyed this bit of video, and hopefully I'll be able to get to this project in a few years time when I get eventually onto it, because I can't start that one until I get this one finished. And because we couldn't see it last night in the low light, come up into here and this leaf out of here. There's the driver's seat from down low, and there it is from up high. There's the driver's controls. The clamp in the way. But yes, when I cut out the driver's window to get these 2 side panels on, I could then look at putting the perspex windows into play as well. And as you can see from here, looking in behind the clamp, there is another coupling mounted in down here. So this can be pulled or pushed from either end, or I can do the pulling or pushing. So this is where the lower hatch is, and there you can now see where I'm at with it. This second rail car, I've got the speed control sitting here, not properly wired up of course, but the speed control will plug in at the front. You've also got the lighting controls, horn and everything else that's still got to go in on this one. But yeah, in behind here, this is the business that makes it work. And then to add on to that, down here somewhere will be the batteries. There's the one for the 12 volt lighting. And to give you some idea what I'm using, 12 volt 22 amp hour battery for the lighting. And in behind here will be cleaned out, and we'll have 2 125 amp hour batteries. So yes folks, source of this particular video is the ramp. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you back on the next video, hopefully.